Welcome to the Glass is Half Full talk show. Let's face it, life can be tough in many ways. Here on the Glass is Half Full, we focus on how life is tough financially. Dealing with these financial realities can be a challenge. Essentially, we have to find ways to do more with less. Less money, that is. The show is focused on helping you discover ways to achieve that goal, even if you don't have a lot of money to work with. We'll be meeting people from many different walks of life. They'll share their stories and expertise. Looking to do more with less and maintain a positive attitude while you're doing it? Welcome to the Glass is Half Full. Now let's join Richard and his guests in the studio.
Today we're going to be talking about getting your finances in order. We're going to introduce you to a new powerful budgeting app from KOHO, K-O-H-O. Did I get it right?
That's right.
That's right, eh? Which is a new digital bank in Canada. Now, my guest and the girl I've been talking with is Silvi Pukitis. Did I get it right?
Pukitis, but
Pukitis. Sorry, I want to say I for some reason.
No.
Okay, Pukitis. Sorry, Silvi. I know I asked you that before, but at my age, I forget things very quickly. So. You're a financial coach with KOHO. Silvi has been an investment analyst with some major corporations and a financial planner, and now with KOHO, a financial coach. She helps people take control of their budget and hit their financial goals, basically. So, Silvi, welcome to the Glass is Half Full.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Now, I'm going to want to find out all about KOHO in a minute and all that, but first I'd like to find out exactly what a financial coach is. That's what you do, right? You're a financial coach?
Yeah.
And people might have weird ideas of what's the difference between a coach and a planner and an advisor and all that. So what can you tell us is the basic difference between a financial coach and, say, a financial advisor or a financial planner?
For sure. So I'd say the biggest difference is between a financial planner or coach and a financial advisor. And that's because as a financial planner or coach, you're essentially helping people manage their money and giving them a unbiased financial plan on things such as how to tackle their debt or how to save up for retirement or potentially creating a budget. But you're not actually managing their investments. So traditionally, a financial advisor's job is to buy and sell investments that basically help someone with savings achieve their goals. Whereas in planning, you're not touching that. It requires a lot of regulation and you have to be part of an IROC regulated firm. So it's just a little bit different. The other thing is how you're paid. So generally financial planners or coaches are fee for service, so a flat fee, either based on the service or based on the number of hours you work, and it keeps it unbiased. You're not selling products, so you're not paid a commission.
Right.
And whereas financial advisor, you're generally paying a percentage of however much of your assets they're managing.
So a financial coach isn't telling people what to do with their money. It's telling people how to do with their money. Is that it?
I would say, yeah, you could say that. So we would touch everything up to actually the investments, but we could say, Richard, based on what your goals are and your financial picture looks like, pretty simple. I think you'd be best off with an online investment platform, that needs keep your investments in there for 10 years and they will tell you exactly what to invest in. But I think that would help you achieve your goals versus I'm not taking your money and buying and selling stocks in that sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And of course, as such, there's no manipulation of money that way. It's just basic fundamentals, basically, right? You're teaching people how to manage money without being specific as to where to put it.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The goal is to help.
With some exceptions, obviously. Like if you thought that it'd be a good idea that I would get into an RRSP, for instance.
Yeah.
Tell me, right?
Yeah, I can tell you what accounts, so whether it's a savings account or an RSP, or what order to tackle your debt, but wouldn't go beyond that other than say, why don't you look at these institutions? I'm unbiased. I think they'd all be good options for you.
Right. Okay, I think that's pretty clear. Now, in my business, and we've talked about this before, so the the main thing I see of people when they get into financial trouble is the inability to control their credit card debt.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, a lot of people have a hard time with this. Obviously, right? This is not new. Everybody has some difficulty with this to some extent.
Yeah.
But some of the things that they run into and things that get them in trouble is the interest rates they pay,
Mm-hmm.
is the type of credit cards that they're using. They get kind of drawn in by certain offers and things like that. Do you help them with this?
Yeah, we try and basically help them understand what their spending sort of personality or tendencies are, and then based on that, figure out what financial products would work best for them. So a common thing that I see specifically when I'm working at KOHO is that people have in the past used credit cards, and to your point, without sort of a hard limit on how much you can spend, you can end up overspending. And they'll come to KOHO when they've actually decided, you know what, I need to start tackling my credit card balance and I can't use it anymore. So they'll put their credit card, for example, in their drawer, or someone that I know actually just like got rid of their credit cards and they started using KOHO because it's a cash account, like a checking account where you put money on it and you can't go beyond that limit. And so that works for certain people if they want to preload their budget or put their paycheck onto an account where you can't spend more than you have and you actually start to get in the hang of living, having more control over your money. So that's one thing. But if there's something else that might suit their personality a little bit better, we'll certainly look at that and figure out what the best way for them to organize their finances is.
That sounds an awful lot like a debit account, right?
Yeah, so it's very similar. Essentially, it's just like a debit account, but it's running on the network of Visa, which means that you can use it wherever credit is accepted. So if I went to the cash register and someone asked me what form I'm paying with, I would say credit, but it's really my KOHO checking-like account. The nice thing about that is that you can use it online. And you get 0.5% cash back for all of your transactions. So it's not as high of rewards as a credit card, but it's better than a debit card.
But you actually have a card.
That's right. A really fun
As far as the rest of the world is concerned, it looks like a credit card, doesn't it?
Yeah.
All right, so you go to Walmart, they say, how you paying? You say credit, whip out this particular card, and you're essentially operating a very, very different way, but on the same lines as the MasterCard, for instance.
That's exactly right. And I think the industry has changed so that people are so used to using credit that they feel almost ripped off if they're not getting any rewards. So that's where the little bit of cash back helps. And then ultimately, if you look at the numbers, often people will spend about 10 to 15% less when they're using a KOHO or a debit card. So think of that, like a 10 or 15% difference in spend. That's a really awesome reward if you flip it that way and think about your rewards coming from actually having more savings just because you're not.
It's like making 10, 15% interest.
Exactly.
Yeah. Is it hard for people to get the hang of this?
I would say in the sense that because Canada has, 5 really entrenched banks, it's hard for people to sort of wrap their heads around using anything else. So what we see is that often people will start small. So one of the things that I do is help people set a budget, which would be, look at your income, what are your bills, and then your savings or debt payments, and then whatever's left over is kind of your personal spending money, which is usually the hardest to control. So they might start by just putting that on KOHO, or they might even start smaller, saying it's going to be my card for restaurants and entertainment, and they put on, say, $300 a month, and they kind of get the hang of it that way. And then I think once they we haven't talked about it yet, but there's an app that's associated that basically tells you in real time where your money has been going and how much you have left, and also some little ways to stash away change. So once they get the hang of that and see themselves as someone that's more in control and maybe actually saving a bit, then they'll put more spending onto it. But it's certainly, there's friction. Like in Canada, especially, people don't really want to change financial institutions.
Really? Canadians are conservative. How about that?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm intrigued by KOHO itself. It's a new bank, right? And it has features such as you just mentioned here. I'm reading it, apps, various other forms of assistance that they're giving people for their investing and whatnot, but no branches. Unlike a traditional bank, it's not a visible bank in a sense, right? But you're offering the same services basically as a regular bank?
Yeah, for the most part. So KOHO itself isn't actually a regulated bank, but what we do is we partner with a bank out of Vancouver called People's Trust that actually holds the funds, and then we're the institution that basically moves the money and creates the app. So for example, if something were to happen to KOHO, you'd basically have a People's Trust bank account that's insured, and your money wouldn't be going anywhere.
They're regulated by the Bank Act and all that, right?
That's exactly right. So that's just to address that. But in terms of everything else, for the most part, it's the same. You can send e-transfers, pay bills, do whatever you like to do. If you want to pay your credit card bill, you can do that. You can take cash out of an ATM, although we don't have our own ATM, so you would be charged whatever that out-of-network fee that you probably experience when you need to get cash and your ATM isn't right there.
Right.
But for the most part, and we're continually updating features, so I'm sure if we talked again in a year or so, we'd probably say, yep, we do everything.
I probably will talk about a year or so.
Yeah.
I'm reading the list of things that in some sense offered here. Okay, there's no fees for the card.
No.
Right? This is a feeless process as far as that's concerned.
Yeah.
It's prepaid, like you said.
Yeah.
You actually load up the thing, like you would a regular bank account if you were using a debit card, right?
Right.
Yeah. And no interest, obviously. You're not borrowing any money, right?
Right.
And then you got 1% rewards. Why specifically 1% here? Before you mentioned 10%, 15%, that kind of thing. We're talking about different things?
I think so. It's not 1%. It's 0.5% on everything. Or if you are sign up for something called KOHO Premium, you get 2% on groceries, restaurants and eating out, and then transportation. And that is where there is a small fee. So basically for people that spend, the break even's about $600 a month on those three categories I just mentioned. You'd actually be better off with this premium service where you get 2%, but you pay $9 a month. But for the bare bones and what most people start with, it's free, no fees, and get 0.5% cash back.
How did they receive these rewards? You just said cash back. What happens?
So on your app, you would see your account balance, and then you'd see the cash back that you accrue, and it accrues basically immediately.
On a transaction by transaction basis?
Yeah, so you might see that you have $20 in cash back, and then you can actually just cash it out, and it goes into your balance on the card.
So your balance just went up $20.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. Not every bank does that.
No, usually it's once a year.
Well, that's interesting, but I guess it's a question of visualizing all of this.
I know. I should have.
It sounds a little different, right?
I should have brought with me my card because they're these funky two-tone cards, and you can actually pick the color that you want. they all have kind of a fun personality behind them. So I have blue and kind of an iridescent silver, but you can get lots of different colors. And then, yeah, the app, I know people, if it's audio, can't hear this, or see this, but you can see the app kind of shows your balance. And then there's different savings features, including your power-ups is the cashback.
Flip it around a little bit.
Oh, there we go.
Sometimes
I can send you
some of the
screenshots.
writing doesn't show up there. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
They get the gist of it.
Yeah, it's kind of it's a techie feel.
Very 21st century-ish, right?
Yeah, that's what we go for.
Cutting edge. And I guess the other thing that comes to mind is how usable is this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just the kind of thing that you run into problems with places saying, "What is this?" or being doubtful about being able to use this here.
So the adoption is pretty great by merchants because what they see is all they see is prepaid Visa, and that's accepted nearly everywhere. Not if it's a debit only merchant, then you wouldn't be able to. What else? I guess
it's where people accept credit cards, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. A couple of things to be mindful of is when you're traveling, where it's actually accepted worldwide, but sometimes, as with most cards, if you're in different countries, sometimes it doesn't work. So I'd always bring a backup one. And also, when you book a rental card or a rental car or a hotel, and you might have to put down a deposit, say $500. The funny strange thing about prepaid visas is sometimes that actually goes through as an authorization where it would say, okay, you just spent $500, and then it will go away, but you have to wait a couple days. So when you're putting down a safety deposit, usually we'd say don't use a prepaid card. But I use it all day, every day for all my transactions. We have a free joint account too, so I use that using Apple Pay and pay everywhere. Don't have problems.
There's very little problems and no negative feedback kind of thing.
Yeah, we're lucky now. I feel like the payment space has come so far. Dollarama even accepts credit cards now. I used my card yesterday there.
Now, I know from experience that getting people to get the gist of budgeting and be able to impose the disciplines and self-disciplines involved in proper or successful budgeting, it's a tough road to hoe.
Yeah.
People, if this hasn't been inculcated into them when they're children, if they don't grow up with that kind of attitude towards money, it's a learning process and a tough one for some people. Now, some banks offer online budgeting help and things like that. But you have an app that you've been talking about, and what I understand, this takes it to a new level. Okay, can you explain the differences or where your app differs from the others? Go ahead.
So I would agree with you that budgeting is generally a feared topic, and honestly, we don't love the word either, but it does resonate with people. But if you kind of think of why do people budget, usually the kind of things that come to mind are, one, to control your spending and spend within your means, and two, to actually save or start putting away money towards, maybe it's your payment plan to pay off a consumer proposal. So
you mentioned that.
Yeah, which I'd love to we'll get into later. But in terms of controlling your spend, I would say the people that love KOHO the most is people that, like I said before, were just using credit and they were finding that they can't get their balance down. They're in the red every month. So when they switch to using KOHO, either for their whole paycheck or just that fun discretionary budget, then they have guardrails. So basically when the money is gone, it's gone, and they just basically have a hard stop for them. And of course that sounds pretty abrupt, but the nice thing about the app is that it shows you like I was saying before, where your money is going. So say you set a budget for $100 a month on eating out and entertainment. You could go into the app and check it's called the insights, and see I've spent 75 this month. Like, this is where I'm at. We don't have it yet where you could set a budget and then it would give you a hard stop, but that's something that we're hopefully going to come out with next year. So
that might be embarrassing.
Not a hard stop at the merchant, but just like a little notification or something, because I agree.
Right.
But so that's kind of in terms
like a very prominent red flag, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
You got to keep your dignity, even if no one can budget in a straight line. Life doesn't happen that way.
This program is about anything. It's about dignity. So
yeah. Oh, so most people, they start using it, they feel in control of their spending because their credit card balance is not going up anymore. And that's the most important thing. And then the flip side is in terms of saving. So we have a couple tools that help you automate your savings, because one of the oldest sort of tricks in the book for saving is just pay yourself first and automate, and you tend to save twice as much. So one of them is called roundups, and what that does is if you bought, say, $1.75 coffee, it would round up to the nearest dollar, so to $2, or you can set it to the nearest $2, $5, or $10, so it could round up to $5, and then that extra money goes into this special savings pocket. So you don't see that money in your balance anymore. And so as far as you're concerned, that money's not there, but it's gone into this little savings pocket. And that's really helpful for people that just, like, they're new to saving. They've never done it at all.
It's the, in a sense, a forced savings, but not quite forced. It's more like an invisible savings plan.
That's exactly right. And then you can also set, they're called savings goals. And so another idea of automation where, say you said, okay, Silvi, I need $400 this month to put towards my consumer proposal. I would set that goal, $400 by the end of the month, and then set up when I want to contribute. So it might be daily, just a couple bucks a day. Or it could be, you can set it to when you get your paycheck, so that $400 goes right in there. And then again, it's like invisible savings that you don't really realize you're doing. And you wouldn't believe how powerful that is for someone that's come from being in a debt spiral to now not only not increasing that debt, but then they see they have savings for once in their life. It's really, really cool to see that.
Now, all banks promote the idea of savings.
Yeah.
Most financial institutions promote that idea somehow or other, right? But like you said, it's a difficult thing. If you can do it through the, let's call them, I don't know, tricks or the invisible ways to assist a person to get into the habits of these things. You can't do anything but win out of that, as far as the individual is concerned. But well, you've written a number of articles, from what I understand, on this whole subject, and the idea of getting it through to people that what they can do and to actually do something, right? Now, well, let's start with, where can they find these articles? Where can they get this information from? And better yet, where can they get your services?
For sure. So koho.ca/learn is where the blogs are. Or if you just if you Googled KOHO and went to the website and then clicked on learn, you'd see the blog where we have different, how-to guides on different parts of your finances. If you are a KOHO user, and you can access financial coaching through, there's sort of a chat function. I also work outside of KOHO doing one-on-one financial coaching. And so my company is called Wild One Wealth, and it's Silvi@wildonewealth.com is where, if you wanted more hands-on experience, either in person or on the phone that wasn't through an app, then you could access it there. Yeah, and we're just trying to, I think the niche is people that, don't have a ton of wealth, but of course they would like some support and some help. That's traditionally been super hard. As you know, that's what your whole business is built on, is,
Yep.
you know,
That's when people have hit a wall, like you talked about earlier, and they have
yeah,
no place else to turn. Usually, when people come to see us, for the vast majority of them, budgeting is not going to be the answer to their problem anymore.
no,
They have to take some more drastic steps to get themselves back where their feet are firmly planted on the ground. But then that's where you would take over. Is there anything else that you'd like to leave people with, Sylvia? Because we're just about running out of time.
yeah, I would say just as you said, it's so overwhelming to feel like your finances are in disarray, but honestly the best thing you can do is just not be hard on yourself. Whatever situation you're in, you're definitely not the only person in that situation. We all go through ups and downs,
And
and
it's never too late to start. Huh?
yeah, just start, and don't be afraid to ask for help. That's what people like you and myself are here for. And
Mm-hmm.
you know you can change it. It's debt is just a number that you're in control of and that you can change.